Sonic. I have a strained relationship with the Blue Biscuit. I started getting into him with Unleash and then casually playing Generations and Lost World, and then becoming a large fan of the series right before Sonic Boom came out. Not really a great time to be a Sonic fan. I've indulged myself into some of Sonic's past outings while waiting for a new one to come out, playing the first 3 classic Sonic games, Sonic CD, SA2, Sonic and the Secret Ring, Sonic and the Black Knight, and Sonic Colors. In that 3-year gap, 2 new hopes finally shone on the horizon. Sonic Mania, a classic-styled callback game, and what was known as Project Sonic 2017, a new 3D Sonic game. There's also a reaction to the initial trailer on my channel if you wanna, I don't know, watch that or something. I'll love you forever. The game was eventually titled Sonic Forces and showed some decent potential. Sonic Mania came out to expected great success, but the release date for Sonic Forces was approaching alarmingly fast, and the game still didn't show if it was for sure a massive success or not. Well, the game is finally out, and I'm currently watching the credits as I write this. I know I'm a little late on this review, but I think it's time we see how the Blue Blur's newest outing holds up. Is it as good as Generations? Is it another Sonic Boom? Ladies and gentlemen, my name is FrogmarioL6J, and this is my review of Sonic Forces. The story is probably one of the best parts about this game. It starts off with Sonic running through Green Hill to meet up with Tails, who is protecting some people in the city. Sonic arrives just in time to save the day, but then gets defeated by returning foes and Eggman's newest creation, Infinite. Sonic is defeated and Eggman takes over the world, while Sonic's friends form a resistance to stop Eggman. You then get to make a custom character, which is introduced as a new recruit for the resistance. Also, one quick thing to note is that Silver is in the resistance. Why is Silver in the resistance? When I saw him in trailers, I was hoping that they would give him some kind of backstory for him being there, but unfortunately there isn't one. Anyway, we found out that Sonic isn't dead, but he's been being tortured on the Death Egg for the past 6 months. By this point in the story, you'll have had the notion that this game is a tad darker than other recent Sonic games hammered into your skull. The rest of the story is pretty cut and dry with other Sonic games, but it still manages to stay somewhat interesting. Here are a few points I would like to bring up before we move on to the next major point though. The message at the end of the game is the whole real superpower of friendship and teamwork trope that has been done to death in so many Sonic games already. It just feels like they made that the main message of the story because they couldn't think of anything else. It's also kind of weird how supportive Sonic is to the custom character. He just calls your character buddy and partner, just overly positive to them. I can see that they did this all for the kids who would play the game, and I bet they all got super happy with that, but it just felt kind of weird as an older fan of the series. Also, another thing. What is even the point of Null Space? I mean, Sonic and the Avatar get sucked in there and all hope seems lost, but then they just team boost out of there and the level progresses. There's like no point in the story to it. If we got an entire level around it and it gave us some backstory into the Phantom Ruby or something like that, then it would be cool. But you could remove it from the plot and it would make zero difference. Also, why is Omega in the end? The last we saw of Omega, he was broken and beaten up in the abandoned city. Who fixed him? How did he know where to go? None of these questions are answered. This moment was so obviously some pandering for the fans, and it's annoying because it works. I love this moment in the story and I can't help but smile when it happens, but I know that's what Sega wants. If you pre-order the game, you can get some Episode Shadow DLC. It gives you 3 levels with some remixed music themed around Shadow, where you can play as, surprise surprise, Shadow the Hedgehog. There is some story in this DLC and it gives you some backstory on Infinite. Basically, he was a mercenary that worked for Eggman, Shadow beat him up, he wanted to become stronger, so Eggman fitted him up with the Phantom Ruby and he became Infinite. A comic was also released showing how Infinite met Eggman. It isn't very exciting. It makes a point in the game not to show Infinite's face, but in the comic, they just seem fine with putting that in there. He's also a jackal. Jackals are basically just discount foxes. Infinite is overall a pretty decent villain, but I feel like they never really delved deep into the potential he could have had. I just wanted more of him in this game than there really was, and that's a little disappointing. I also didn't really understand his whole gimmick of the fake reality thing, which was explored in Episode Shadow, and I wish they went into it a little more. He just felt like he had so much power, but didn't choose to use it. I mean, if he can create null space, and if he can create whole new realities where the sun can come crashing down Majora's Mask style, and an entirely new reality for Shadow, you'd think it wouldn't be too hard for him to beat Sonic, right? Guess not. Gameplay in Sonic Forces is a very mixed bag. There are 4 different types of gameplay styles: Modern Sonic, the custom avatar, Classic Sonic, and stages with Modern Sonic and your avatar. Before we talk about each of those individual gameplay styles, I just want to touch on some of the general gameplay elements. First off, there are 10 areas for the levels to take place in Sonic Forces, and I really enjoyed some of the new levels, like Metropolis. Only 7 out of the 10 levels are new though. That wouldn't be too much of a problem if 2 of the 3 returning locales weren't Green Hill and Chemical Plant. Seriously, I'm sick of these 2 stages in every Sonic game just for the nostalgia pandering. It's not bad just because they've been in the most recent games, but it makes them less enjoyable in the games they debuted in. The level design in Green Hill isn't even very good. Chemical Plant's enjoyable though. Another problem is that the levels are just way too short. I don't think any of them even get over the 2-minute 30 mark on an S-rank run, except for a couple classic Sonic stages. The biggest problem with this game though has to be the physics. I don't understand how this game that was in development for 4 years messed up something so integral to the gameplay so badly. Was there not one point in development where somebody realized that the levels they were designing didn't complement the flawed and uninteresting physics they had created? Now it's hard to tell the struggle from the gameplay, but when you pick up the controller for this game, you realize the issue. Sonic and his friends go from 0 to 100 in no time whatsoever, and they have the weight of rocks when they jump. Every time I need to get up and jump in a platforming section, I become terrified because it's basically a 50-50 chance if you'll even land. This wouldn't be too bad, except for the fact that Sonic is mainly a platforming game. Seriously, when making a platformer, the most important part that you need to nail is the physics. I just don't understand how Sega went backwards with this. Colors had some decent control, and Generations was amazing. I get that they had to start it all again because they switched from the Hedgehog engine to the Hedgehog engine 2, which does make the game look great. But the physics are just abysmal. Speaking of the Hedgehog engine 2, while it does a great job of making everything look good, it isn't without its glitches. While I was recording this review, I encountered a glitch where I clipped through the floor during a boss fight and fell infinitely, and one time I boosted off into oblivion. There are also just way too many times where I can just turn my brain off and hold 1 or maybe 2 buttons. This happens especially with Modern Sonic's boost sections, but they like to do it with Classic Sonic sometimes also. One place you would expect your brain would be needed would be to collect red rings though, right? Well, yeah, the red rings are just sorta out of your way, but not too hard to get. But wait, why get red rings when they have no reward? There's literally 0 incentive to go after these things. There were times when I'd constantly be dying like an idiot trying to go after a red ring, and then suddenly I would realize, why am I even doing this? And just get on with the level. Now about Classic Sonic. He suffers the worst gameplay-wise out of all 4 types. Since all he has is platforming, his levels are the least fun in the game because there's nothing to do. His music is some very below-average synth stuff, trying to replicate the classic soundtracks, and what bugs me the most is that he really doesn't need to even be in the story. We've had enough of Classic Sonic already with Generations and Mania, just let him go. Modern Sonic is the most fun gameplay style in my opinion. His gameplay is pretty good, but it's annoying that you can't drift. The drift is essential to Modern Sonic because you're going so fast you need to drift, like a racing game, and you go flying off of corners without it. Also, all of the enemies in his levels are just boost fodder, which plays back into my point where you can just turn your brain off in so many sections of this game. One last cool thing about his gameplay is that after a few levels, Shadow becomes playable, which is really fun. At the end of every level, you get a couple rewards and costumes for your custom hero, which is actually pretty nice since creating the custom hero is really fun for me personally. But if you're not so into that, there's basically no reward for doing anything. There isn't much to say about the avatar that hasn't already been said about the other 2 gameplay styles. It's Modern Sonic without the boost, and it still has the terrible physics that plague all the other characters. They get some Wisp-themed weapon with the creatively named Wisp-Bonds, but they're all pretty much the same, and I just keep with the first one given to you since it lets you keep the momentum going. Lastly, there's the Modern Sonic and Avatar stages. Nothing new, when you press the boost button you take control of Modern Sonic, and when you press the Wisp-Bond button you get the Avatar. There's no real reason to play as the Avatar unless you have to destroy a circle of enemies. Also, something about the music that I want to say quickly. It's about as mediocre as the rest of the game. In fact, you may have noticed that some of the tracks in the background are from other Sonic games than just Forces, because I don't like the music enough to put it in the background. The vocal tracks are cool, Fist Bump and the theme for Infinite are great. The custom hero style of music is electronic vocals, Modern Sonic is more of a rock type style with some electronic parts, and Classic Sonic has a weird synth style. The gameplay, level design, and music just feel really mediocre overall. Just when it gets fun, the level either ends, you get to turn your brain off, or it gets into a platforming section. But there's enough Sonic Forces is certainly an interesting game. It's definitely not as good as Colors, Generations, or Mania. While it's definitely a step back for Sonic Team, I really don't think it's as bad as people on the internet are saying it is. I'd say wait for a price drop on this one. It's not worth its $40 price tag, but it's still a pretty interesting experience nonetheless. It's a game with great visuals, a decent story, and some flawed physics, but nothing too game-breaking or rage-inducing most of the time. Well guys, thanks for watching, and be sure to let me know in the comments how you feel about these more review essay style videos, because I really enjoy doing them, and I'll see you in the next one.